Everyone else must be in Utah, which is fine.
Can can we say where we wish we were?
Yeah, that counts too. Hawaii.
I mean, yeah, you never know who is logging on that has a connection there that might be able to help you get to that location.
Yeah. All right. Do we want to give it another minute or so, or I can't see the participants? What
Yeah.
number are we
We'll
at?
give it like another minute or two.
Yeah, let's give it a couple more minutes for people who are just getting off work, just logging on. So maybe a show of hands, how many people participated in our last Eccles Alumni Career Lab? So just a few. For those of you that missed it, I highly recommend that you view it. It is on our Eccles School Business YouTube channel. I'll go ahead and post that in the chat here in just a moment. And then this one is also being recorded, and that will also live on our Eccles Alumni YouTube channel.
That one was fantastic, and it'll be a great, people that want to watch it after, it'll be a great follow-up because he'll go very in depth with LinkedIn, ChatGPT. It was really great. So definitely recommend.
I made it mandatory viewing for my class.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. What class do you teach?
So I coach the Masters of Science in Finance students, and this is a career class for that group.
Great. That's fantastic.
So we're just about 5 minutes after. So I'll go ahead and give my little intro speech and I'll hand it off to Michelle. But hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of our Eccles Alumni Network Career Lab. We're so excited to join you today. My name is Zach Crum, and I'm an alumni and student engagement specialist here at the David Eccles School of Business. And I'm really just glad to be able to spend the time with you all, continuing on this professional development journey that we've started this year, and get to learn and connect with you. And I'm also super excited to introduce our presenter today, Michelle, and I'll let her talk about herself as well. But she is just a super alumna, really engaged with everything we do. She serves on our alumni network board. She mentors our students. She speaks on panels and does just a million amazing things. And we're so happy to have her here with us today to share her story and her expertise. So Michelle, I'll let you go ahead.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, thanks everyone for being here. As Zach mentioned, I love the U. And so you can see here, I graduated with my MBA in 2020. I now work at Calypso, a Rockwell automation company, doing consulting. But when I was in my MBA, I made a huge career pivot. So prior to MBA, I was in restaurant management, hospitality. So I obviously made a huge pivot into consulting. But when I was in grad school, I was, to be candid, just blown away by the amount of talent and individuals, and felt a lot of imposter syndrome. And that's when I started thinking about, okay, what skill can I lean on that can help me through these couple of years? And that ended up being networking. So I think that it is a huge, valuable skill that students and alumni need, and it's just very valuable. So I'm excited to talk with you all about it. All right. So my first thing is, we talk a lot about networking. Do people want to throw in the chat, like when you hear the word networking, what are a couple of the first things that you think about? They could be positive, they could be negative, they could be, oh, Utah alumni events. I love that. Business cards, people connection. Oh, who you know? Very true. Yep. Yes, all of those things are very true. Connecting. Yep. So if you Google the definition of networking, it is the action or process of interacting with others to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. And specifically, the cultivation of productive relationships for employment or business. So it sounds kind of dull a little bit, right? Some people get scared when they hear the word networking, right? It can be a little bit intimidating. So I actually like to call it building relationships. A lot of people think, and we'll get it a little bit into misconceptions, but a lot of people think that networking is just that you're just trying to get something from that person that one time, and that's it. You probably hear people say, well, they probably just think that I want something from them, so I'm not going to go talk to them. But just think of networking more as building relationships as I kind of go through this presentation. Shocker, I'm sure none of you knew this, that networking remains the #1 cause of job attainment. If you all could put a percentage that you think of how many people get their jobs through networking, go ahead and throw that in the chat right now. You can put a percentage range, you can put an exact number, 50 to 75, 75, which percentage wise, I feel like anything above 50% is pretty high, right? So if you Google will tell you that, yeah, 88%, yep, sometimes you wouldn't even imagine that it would be that high, but approximately 60 to 85% of all jobs are obtained through networking, which can be encouraging or discouraging the way that you look at it, right? If you don't have a huge network and you don't have those connections, it could very much be discouraging because you might just be sending these resumes out and getting auto replies instantly. And you know that no one has even looked at your resume because you know you're awesome, but you just need someone's eyes to get on it. You just need to get in front of them. You need to have a conversation. And the way that a lot of people do that these days is through the connections. Recruiters get upwards of, from the last career lab, he'll tell you that recruiters get approximately 1,000 resumes per role. And so it's nothing against the person. It's just almost impossible to sift through all of those resumes. And it's much easier to have a good employee or a friend or somebody tell you, hey, this person would be really good at this job. You should look at their resume. So it makes it just so much easier when recruiters have that connection point. Any questions about that? Anybody surprised by that number? Based on the chat, it seems like most people thought that, but anyone surprised? All right. It's so funny to me because most people are not surprised by this, but then when you see events, how many times have you showed up to an event and it's empty, or there's just a few people, or you want to go to this event and then you just kind of decide, I'm tired after work. I'm just going to sit down and watch Netflix, or I'm going to, so sometimes even knowing that such a high percentage is attained through networking, it's hard for people to get out there and kind of do these things. All right, so we're going to walk through a few misconceptions about networking. I love a challenge. So if anybody wants to challenge me on any of these, feel free to come off mute. Let's chat about it. I want this to be as engaging as possible for you all. So the first one, you must know what you want to do. How much, just raise of hands, how many people have heard this before? Like if you're going to a networking event, you need to make sure you know exactly what you want to do. You need to go up to the person and be very structured. And like, have any of you all heard that? I definitely have. Yep, see some hands. So this is actually a misconception. I feel that this tends to put people in a box. And sometimes people don't know what they want to do. And so one of the ways that you can kind of get around this is by finding attributes that you like about a job. So rather than saying, I want to do consumer marketing at this specific company, you could go up and chat with people and say, I really love design. I really love storytelling. I like reaching out to people and having conversations. I like the visualizations. I like to turn data into like these stories, or, you know, you can use aspects of it, but it doesn't have to be this very structured box of things. I used to tell people that I wanted to do customer success because I love working with people. And through time, I realized, actually, I feel like that's such a niche role. Maybe I can, you know, a few years ago it was, now it's booming. But so I started telling people, I love working with people. I love solving problems. I love a challenge. I love, you know, all of these different things that you love about things, and that can transfer over to multiple different jobs. So you're kind of keeping yourself from getting in this box. Does anyone have any recommendations about how they have gone into a networking event and either used attributes of what you wanted to do, or do you find an advantage in saying what you do want to do? Yes, be open to all possibilities. Yep. All right. The next one is that it's hard. And you'll see later in the presentation that there are facts about, I have some facts about networking, and I'll say that it is hard. So this is kind of, you know, counterintuitive, but a lot of people think that it's hard to do. And if you look at all of the different ways that you can network, and if you look at it more of building the relationship rather than this robotic process, it isn't as hard as you might think it is. If you go to the gym and you run into somebody there and you start chatting and you start talking about your jobs and you start talking about what you want to do and you end up exchanging phone numbers, that's networking. And so it's not always going to these conferences and having business cards and making sure that you tell them exactly what you want to do, and you mention that you've applied for roles, or it doesn't have to be that scary robotic process. It can be a fun, just run into someone at the grocery store and start talking to them, and it can be fun. Yeah, someone put, you have to be a good listener. That is very, very true. We'll get to that a little bit when we talk about some of the facts. You must be a people person and love networking. When I was in grad school, people would say, well, Michelle, it's just because you love people. You're such a people person. You love talking to people. So that's why you love it. But there are so many different types of networking these days that you don't even have to verbally talk to people. We'll get into some of them later. We'll talk about, you know, LinkedIn, Forever Utah, so many things online that you don't have to be this boisterous people person. You just have to come into the conversation and know that it's building a relationship. And someone had put in the chat that, you know, it's who you know. And a lot of people think that it is, you need to have the right connections to get to the right people. It is true in some sense, but what I always tell people is that you never know where a connection is going to take you. You might think that you don't have a connection in a space, but then it turns out that your neighbor's cousin knows this, they're looking for this role, or you never know where it's going to come from. With networking, it is kind of hard to pick a specific, like, I want to be a software engineer at Google, which is an amazing goal, right? But it narrows your bucket into just be so much smaller than it typically would be than if you would just cast the net wide and talk to as many people as possible and be, like someone said in the chat, be more open to possibilities. Okay, this is perfect because someone just put in here finding mutual interest. Another misconception about networking is that it's self-serving. A lot of people get nervous and hesitant about networking because they don't want to feel like they're being selfish and that the person that they're networking with they think they're only talking to them because they want something out of it. Networking doesn't have to be that way. You do need to make sure that there's mutual interest. I tell people all the time that people that go to networking events, if someone has a job, they're not going and saying, I'm going to go and hand out 5 different jobs. So the first 5 people that walk up to me are going to get these jobs. No, they're going because they want to meet people. They want to learn. They want to talk to other folks either in their industry, learn about new students or what other people are doing. And so they're going to these events for a reason. And so it's just everyone mostly at networking events kind of knows like, okay, you're going to be talking to individuals, but it doesn't have to feel this. Sorry if anyone on the call is a car salesman. Like, it doesn't have to feel like a slimy car salesman that's trying to get something out of you. Are there any other misconceptions that people can think of about networking?
Misconceptions.
Yeah. Anything that makes that you think that you've heard about networking that you think might not be true, or something that you might, anything like that.
I think one thing I'm chime in, Michelle. I think one thing I've heard either like from students or even just some of the alumni that I know from my time that don't go to like our alumni events, or that they're like, oh, it's gonna be like this thing's gonna be stuffy, or I'm not gonna feel like I fit in with the people there. I think that's like there's a feeling that like networking is inherently inauthentic because I think you talked about it with self-serving, but I think there people are uneasy about it being like oh, like I get something from you or you get something from me, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people show up to networking events feeling like they have to show their best. They have to put their best foot forward. They have to
Like you can't
dress.
talk to anyone.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Okay. Yeah, people feel like they have to be the best that they can be, because if they make one mishap, they might lose out on an opportunity that might be there. They might say something wrong, or they might wear the wrong jacket or something like that. But most of the times, nobody is looking at those things. I've never once been to an event where someone was like, oh my gosh, they wore a red jacket instead of black, and so I'm not going to give them this job that I was giving away. It all just comes down to, like I keep coming back to, building that relationship. And if there is a common interest and that feeling there, then that will build over time. And that's how you start to get value out of the relationship. But I think that if people take that pressure off of themselves, like Zach, you're saying, then you can show up more authentically yourself, and it's easier to walk around the room and talk to people. So that definitely is a huge misconception, that there's kind of stuffy. Let's see, some people. Oh yeah, the elevator pitch. Yes, people. So I don't know if I love the elevator pitch. I absolutely 100% agree that everybody should have one, but I also think that there's a misconception that it needs to be this robotic, you just remember it word for word, and that is not what an elevator pitch should be. An elevator pitch should be, again, your authentic self, just sharing very quickly what you have done and what you plan on doing. but I don't think that it should be like reading off of a teleprompter, right? And so just being like, you don't have to go to each table and say the exact same thing. You can, sit at the table for a little bit, hear what everyone else is talking about, and then start to adjust. Don't assimilate and just start saying kind of what they're saying, but just find the strengths that you have that relate to that conversation or to that job that they're talking about, or that just whatever that they are talking about. So that's a good one. Elevator pitches are tough. All right, so now we've talked about some misconceptions. Let's talk about some truths about networking. All right. I think that this is one of the biggest things that helped me with networking. And I guess I didn't say this in the beginning. The job that I have now, I actually received through networking at the U. I was in grad school. My consulting firm, Calypso, came to the U to recruit. I was so intimidated with consulting. I didn't feel that my resume was up to snuff, so I didn't apply. And then a week later, there was a networking event, and I was just starting to get in my groove with networking. I had just started to take the pressure off and just saying, just be yourself, right? And so at this networking event, I ran into a woman named Winchester Witten, who is also a U alumni, and she had worked at Calypso for many years. I knew that they were done recruiting, so I wasn't going into the conversation with her expecting a job, but I went in very curious and asking her, hey, can you tell me about consulting? Can you tell me about Calypso? Let me share a story with you of how I've done something similar. That's interesting. And it was truly just a genuine, authentic conversation. And when Calypso came back 2 weeks later, because they wanted some more students for the internship, Winchester told the career team to pull my resume so that they could interview me. If I hadn't gone to that networking event, and if I had not taken the pressure off and just said, yeah, I don't know what I want to do actually, but here are the things that I'm interested in, and let me tell you how that relates to Calypso, even though you don't have an opportunity now. And now I've been at Calypso for 5 years now, right? There's many different cases like that, but so this first one is go in with 0 expectations. And this formula here is satisfaction is a function of expectation. If your expectation is through the roof and you think, okay, I'm going to go to this event and I'm going to leave with 3 job offers. Those are very high expectations. If you don't meet that, then your satisfaction will be very low. It most likely won't be met. But if you switch that and you go in and you say, okay, my expectation is that I am going to get 3 connections on LinkedIn. That is more highly likely because you have more influence into how that can happen. You can talk to more folks. You can pull your phone out and add them on LinkedIn there. And say you leave the event and you have 7 new LinkedIn connections. Your satisfaction is going to be so high because you beat your goal. And so just going in with 0 expectations about what you're going to get out of people, and just go into it with the expectation of learning about new roles, talking with folks, learning new people, all of those things, rather than the very, very specific outcome that you're hoping to get. The next one is people aren't handing out jobs out here. They don't always have to help you, right? I didn't realize this until I was on the other side, right? So as a student, I was always told, go in and put your best foot forward and try to get the job. But on the other side, when I go to networking events, I don't have jobs to hand out. Yes, I can definitely refer, and I do know if we have internships coming up and those types of things. But I think that there's a big misconception that people kind of have to Like if they have a role that they think suits your needs that you've told them in the last 5 minutes, then they have to send you a link to it and give them your name so that you can add them on the referral. But that's not true. It actually, people are putting their name and their role on the line by referring or by telling you to apply for a job, things like that. And so oftentimes when you build that relationship and there's trust between multiple folks, then it's easier to put your name on the line. But oftentimes it's hard for people to do that just in one meeting. And we've talked about this quite a bit. You don't want a job. I highly believe that you want to go in with a relationship. Like I said, you never know where a relationship will take you. And it's just fun. You get to know people and you get to have like a relationship is valuable in and of itself, rather than like something tangible, you know, despite something tangible that you get out of it, right? And so just go in thinking of building a relationship. And one thing that, Michelle, if you have anything to chime in on this, because this was kind of huge that you'd mentioned before, and I highly believe you're not just connecting with one individual, you're connecting with their whole network. How many times have you all heard, oh, I'm gonna apply for this job. They're like, oh, my brother's sister's friend's uncle's nephew works there. Do you want me to try and give you a referral, or do you want me to try and see if they have anything? Or someone saying, you know, someone being in a space and they're hearing their friends say, oh my gosh, I'm hiring for this project manager role. And they think, oh, I was just talking to this person a couple weeks ago at this event. They've reached out to me a couple times after that, and they were mentioning that they would be really interested in project management. Would you want to talk to them? So it's all about making that relationship so that that can transfer beyond just that one individual, but also to their network. And I'm sure you all have heard this. It is a numbers game. Not every connection that you want to build will turn out to be this fruitful apple tree. But if you plant all of the apples, then you will most likely get a couple of them that are bright and juicy, right? And so there are many people who send out lots of connections on LinkedIn and things. They're like, oh my gosh, I sent out 50 requests and only 2 of them have accepted me. But it is a numbers game, right? And maybe those 2 will be the people who in 10 years have a job that you've built a relationship over time and they are excited to refer you for it. Let's see, I'm going to check out the chat here a little bit. Yes, 7 degrees of separation. Every person you meet could get you 1 degree closer to someone that could help you the way you're hoping. That is very, very true, Jason. Let's see. I know a guy. Yeah, everyone has that person who, I know a guy. Everyone should have a friend who is the I know a guy person. And it doesn't have to just be jobs or things, right? It could be, oh no, my sink is broken. I know a guy. You just wait a second. But the I know a guy person is they call them a super booster. They're always very helpful. Let's see. You never know when someone will think of you for an opportunity. Yep, it may be months or years later. Yep. And wait for the right moment to offer your value. Don't look needy. 100%. All right. And we touched on this as well, but it needs to be mutually beneficial. I think that that's one thing that gets some people intimidated or nervous about networking, or seen as, oh my gosh, I saw them at the last networking event. I don't want to talk to them this time because they only wanted to get something out of me. It does need to be mutually beneficial. And so anytime that you're talking with someone, also think of how you can help them. Someone put in the chat earlier about being a good listener. Make sure that you're listening through the conversation and that you can say, oh, you're looking for someone to do marketing for your nonprofit. I have a couple of hours free on Saturday. How would you like if I would help you with your website? Or, it doesn't have to be something as extreme as that, but just make sure that things are mutually beneficial. And this is probably my most favorite. And again, people say it's because I'm a people person, but I actually get nervous as well going to events because, like Zach said, sometimes you never know if you're going to be able to connect with anybody there, if there's going to be clicks there or anything like that. But if you just go, most often times you will find that you find a person or a group or someone who you can connect with and talk to. And so just go, at least go to the event. I find it rare, but take 5 to 10 minutes. And if you absolutely are hating it, which usually doesn't happen, then you always know you can leave and try again next time. But I find that if you just go and put yourself out there, it is so incredibly valuable. And I always say there's no power in numbers with networking. How many of you have gone to a networking event, seen someone that or it could be, previous cohort member or a friend or anybody like that, and then you spend the whole entire event just talking to them? Has that happened to anybody? Yeah, right? And so it's more intimidating to go by yourself, or invite a friend, but say, okay, we're going to go together, but we're going to spend 45 minutes not looking at each other, not talking to each other. We're going to try and get as many LinkedIn connections as we can, build as many relationships as we can, and then we'll meet up at the 45-minute mark if we're not talking to anybody. So I find that approach is good because then you feel a little safe because you have somebody there, but then you're not stuck just talking to the same person the whole time. Let's see. How do you keep the relationship after a networking event without being annoying? Okay, that's a great question. We'll get into that in just a little bit towards the end. And if I don't answer it, is it Gasmin? If I don't answer that, then feel free to chime in again. But
yes, thank you.
great. Okay, the third bullet on here, you never know who you're talking to. I've been to events. I went to a conference years ago, and it was so USAA was recruiting, and everyone was over talking to the main recruiter, right? And there were 2 women that were with her that were kind of walking around and trying to, they were going up to people rather than people going up to them. And then at the end of the event, it turns out that one of them was the person who was going to be doing the vetting of the resumes and people reaching out and things. And so if you think about that, you think, oh my gosh, I wish I would have spent all my time talking to this person. So that way, so you never know who you're talking to. So just make sure to be kind and treat everybody with the same value. If you feel that someone can give you a job, it doesn't make them any more valuable than the other person who's just there because they want to meet people, because they might have a job a job offer to give in 2 weeks, but you truly never know. And one of the ways to get in with networking is to pull the student or alumni card and talk to as many people as you can. Oftentimes people say, oh, well, when I was a student, it was so much easier because I could pull the student card. But you can pull the alumni card too, especially if you're at events and say it's not a U sponsored event, but you go and you see someone from the U. I've gone to parks and I've seen someone with the license plate of the U, and I'm like, hey, I went there too, and start talking to them. So it's an immediate connection that you have that you can always use that card. And then let's see, who was it that had mentioned to not be needy? And go ahead and put in the chat. This next bullet says, don't be that person. Go ahead and put in the chat what you think I mean by don't be that person at networking events. I see some smiles. So I know everyone's thinking of of some traits of that person, but yeah, do you have an internship or a job for me? Yes. Yeah, there's many different things that can go wrong with networking, or challenges that sometimes need to be overcome when you're networking. But I would say that those are like the person who doesn't find that networking needs to be mutually beneficial, and they just go up to everybody and ask for a job or ask for an internship. Or I talked a little bit earlier about not assimilating. So assimilating is kind of changing your traits to match other people. You don't want to go to an event and every table you go to say something different based on the people that are there. Like, you don't want to go and say, oh, this table is full of marketing people. Yeah, I want to do marketing. The next one is full of product management people. I want to do product management because a lot of folks talk, and that can definitely start to get around. And so just kind of be aware of being your authentic self and not needing to ask, like Jason said, you don't need to ask immediately, do you have a job? Do you have an internship? Or just change your views based on the people.
Michelle, I'd like to ask, do you have any tips or advice on, because I think sometimes it could be a balance, right? Where you're like, well, I do want to be honest that I am looking for work, or I am looking for, to pivot into an industry. And so like, I might be looking for something from that person to set up a time with them to chat. But also you don't want to come off needy, or where you might, how do you, like, what are some ways you can establish trust with people, but also maybe not overshare, right? Because when you said don't be that person, that was what I was thinking is a lot of sometimes, and I'm super guilty of this.
Me too. Like
overshare, like, let me show you pictures of my dog, and and all of that. So yeah, any tips or advice? I see Jason's chiming in too, but yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, so are you asking specifically for tips on how not to overshare? Or
Sure, yeah, that, or even just
like not to be
yeah,
that person?
how to be authentic, but also, not be that person if you don't realize.
Yeah, so people go to networking events, and I networking can also be outside of these events, right? Like I said, it could also be the park, it could be the gym, it could be the grocery store. But what you'll find, at least specific to events, is that people go to these because they want to talk, they want to chat. People love to share about themselves. And so I think just leveraging that, being a good listener first, and talking with the person, allowing them to share about themselves. And then kind of, I'm the same way, Zach. I'm like, look at my kids, look at my this and that, like all of those things. But just kind of being aware of that, I think, is a huge first step. But then also, we're talking about don't change what you want to do for each table. I think that the tip earlier about using attributes or traits of a job that you want. So you can go to the marketing table and you can say, yeah, I'm interested in like I had mentioned, visualization and storytelling and reaching out to folks. And then you can go to product management, and that table, you might say, I'm interested in solving challenges. I'm interested in, so it could be attributes and traits about those jobs, but it doesn't have to be, you're not lying, and you do love challenges, but that might not be as relevant to one table as it is to the other. So a lot of it, it's kind of a, what did it say? It's not a science, it's an art. But it's just kind of going with the flow and reading the room and just being your true authentic self, but being aware of, oh, I just pulled out my phone 6 times to show my dog or my kid. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should turn that off for now, and being aware of that. Let's see. And if they never ask for details about you, they probably wouldn't be a good connection anyways. This is true. There are some folks that that will go just to chat about themselves, which is fine because it's great to be proud of yourself and to be excited about your accomplishments and things. But there is a balance between being proud and accomplished and being willing to help others kind of than keeping it to yourself a little bit. And then the last one.
I
Oh,
have two books that I would recommend if you don't mind. So
Yeah.
one is Never Eat Alone. And then the second one is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Really great books to walk through networking if somebody wants, to find those, download them, listen to them on audiobook, but really great to have this and help you to not be that person, but to also really hone in on the art of having conversation.
you should put those in the chat, Michelle. Those are great. All right, and the next one is ask to add people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such a great networking tool. And what I've found is that if you're at an event and sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, can I add you? Okay, let me get your name. You don't write it down. You think you're going to memorize it, but then you talk to 15 other people and now you don't remember that person that you actually really wanted to connect with on LinkedIn. So you can even pull your phone out then and there and say, hey, can I go ahead and add you on LinkedIn right now? Still add a note on there so that they know who you are. Let's see. Oh, Jason with QR codes, LinkedIn. Oh yeah, see, you've got all the tips, Jason. This is great. So ask to add on LinkedIn and then actually add them. Like I said, if you are there and you want to add them, still write a note. Don't ever, ever, ever send a LinkedIn without a note on it. You will be surprised at how many people will not add. They will just reject if they don't know why you're reaching out to them. They don't have any mutual connections. They didn't go to the same school. They don't have the same role. And you kind of look at it and you're like, why do they want to connect? Because network, especially LinkedIn, right? It's to share and broaden your network and share things. And so it's you want to know why people are adding you. So even if you add them there at the event, make sure to just add something in the note so that they know who you are and remember you. And it's even better if you add something from the conversation that you had with them rather than just, hey, we met at this event, love to connect. They're not going to remember you. But if you say, hey, I'm trying to look at these examples of some of the examples I have on here from events that were online and added. But if you say, hey, I remember we were talking about going down, you wanted to visit St. George in a couple weeks. I hope you have a great trip, something like that. Jason, do you have a comment?
I do. So to clarify on the QR thing, if you pull up the LinkedIn app and you just click in the search area to the very far right side of that search text box, there is a QR code icon. You just touch it and it gives you an option to either present your code to someone or to scan someone. So you just both do that and then one of you can scan the other and boom, you're connected.
See, that's awesome. That way you don't have to memorize names, write them down, any of that. That's fantastic. I see that Adam put his LinkedIn in the chat. I love that. I was actually going to have you all put it at the end. You totally go ahead and put it in now. Because I was like, oh no, then what if they're searching around on, on the LinkedIns? But yeah, if everybody wants to pull up their LinkedIn, if you feel comfortable and you want to share with everyone here and make some connections in this session, throw it in there and start making some connections. All right. When it comes to LinkedIn, there's so many additional ways that you can be seen. So whether you post, some people don't like to post a lot, but you can still you can still comment. And I'm sure you all have seen that it'll tell you what your connections liked or commented on or posted, or even it'll tell you a person's someone that they liked something that this other person liked. Like it's just this huge web, right? And so even if you like something, that can get your name out there. So just make sure that you are as active as possible on LinkedIn. And so my sister, she's a really big introvert. She's like, networking events? No, I'm just gonna, I either won't go or I'll just be in the corner eating the snacks. You know, it's a bit harder for her to get out there. But on places like LinkedIn, it's so much easier because you can just connect with people, send a quick message, and that's it. For now, the hope would be that they would connect back with you, and going into this next one, hopefully you are able to take the relationship offline and say, hey, would you want to go grab some coffee, or would you want to go to this baseball game, or anything that you can to take the relationship offline. Hey, there's this event coming up that I think you might be interested in. Do you want to attend together? Things like that. But it's easier to just send the message, right? And connect with people that you feel have mutual interests, things in common, and then try as much as possible to take that offline. And this is another plug for the last career lab session, because Jeremy talked all about, he even gave tips on how you can reach out to people. So he gave tips on how you can find people, whether it's at, alumni or a company that you're interested in. But then he also showed how you can download their profile, put it into ChatGPT and say, hey, I want to reach out to this person. Can you give me some talking points or some topics that we might have in common? And then of course you put a couple of things that you are interested in, and it'll give you bullet points of things that you can talk about with them. And so I highly recommend checking that out, because it takes a lot of the pressure off of, because a lot of people think, well, when I reach out to this person, what do I say? And so that takes a lot of the pressure off by you leveraging ChatGPT. Any comments, questions, or fun stories of people that you've met on LinkedIn, stories you've heard of people who have gotten jobs by connecting on LinkedIn?
I think Jake was able to join the call, so maybe now's a good time to have him tell us his experience
Nice.
as right before graduation.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I'm happy to talk about that. Sorry, I have a calling in to the Zoom call today because I'm driving. I just finished with work. How many people do we have on the call?
We have about 20.
Okay, perfect. So my name's Jake Paul. I graduated from the U, 2023, and around COVID. Well, here's a story to start it. Around COVID, I lived with a bunch of seniors. Those seniors were probably having too much fun, and they didn't graduate with jobs. And COVID, I think, also made it hard for them to get jobs. And I watched the panic on their face. And I saw that and I thought, okay, I'm going to work really hard to not be in that situation, and apply all the energy in my power to network so I can make sure I have options, or at least have a job where I feel comfortable with after I graduate. And because I was a sophomore, they were seniors, different phases of life. And so I would spend, I don't know, probably 2 to 3 hours a week sending messages and trying to connect with people on LinkedIn in the industry I wanted to be in. And the industry was medical devices, more specifically sales and marketing. So I'd send messages, and you know how hard it is to get replies on LinkedIn.
Oh.
I probably got like 20% response rate.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew if I would just send the message, I kind of looked at it as a upside down pyramid and drain. If I messaged 20 people, by the end I'd probably get maybe 5 responses, 4 responses. And if I could get on a call with them, I would always ask, hey, can you connect me to someone else that might be helpful, that could teach me more? And so on these calls, and I think this networking technique applies to whether you're about to graduate or if you've been graduated. I don't think this matters. You can't look at relationships as a DMV relationship. You can't take a tag and move on and then leave the DMV and throw in a tag. You got to look at these relationships as friends, and relationships are building for a really long time. Decade-long friends is how you have to think. And when you change the way you think, the way you interact with people and build relationships, I think naturally changes. And it's, I think someone said earlier, the art of networking. I think that's where the art aspect comes in. And so that's why I think you can't look at it as a DMV relationship. You got to look at it as a long-term friendship. And so I would follow up with these people every 3 months, every quarter. I'd send them an email, shoot them a call, shoot them a text. And I've gotten some job offers just from doing that. So a lot of these industries don't need someone, so they need someone right then and there.
Mhm.
So I figured I wanted to be on someone's lineup, kind of sitting in the dugout, ready to go as talent that's marinating, ready to be hired. And so that's how I looked at it.
Yeah, I think that answered the question of Yasmin, because she was asking, how do you maintain these relationships once you've made them? And just like you said, Jake, reaching out on a certain cadence. You mentioned quarterly, and just whether it's a quick text and someone kind of asked, I think it may have been you as well, but how do you do that without being annoying? Jake, do you have any insight into, I have my own opinions on that, but I'm curious what you would, like, what are some of the messages or things that you would follow up with quarterly?
Right. Well, you don't want to be overbearing, and you got to think you're playing the long game. If you look at these relationships as decade-long friends, you're playing the long game. You know, and they can feel the authenticity or how genuine you are based on kind of the tone and that approach of, hey, these are my friends. I'm going to build and nurture these relationships for life. So with old bosses I've had within the industry as I've moved companies, or old peers or colleagues, or old relationships and mentors I have at the university when I was an undergrad there, I'll text them, I'll call them, I'll reach out to them about every 3 to 6 months. And I'll take 15 minutes, or if it's a call, I'll take 15 minutes. If it's an email, like 4 or 5 sentences. And I'll just update them on my life, kind of ask them how they're doing. And I'll keep it really simple, especially with people that I may want to work for someday. You know, when I was building this network in my undergrad, there's a lot of people that are now my competitors. And I don't give any, they're not direct competitors, but I don't give any information or specific things like that, but they don't work for my company. So when I reach out to them, you know, I praise them and think, hey, thanks for teaching me during this time. I've been able to utilize what you've taught me. But, you know, I've maintained these relationships with these different key opinion leaders within our industry throughout the years. And it's been really helpful. They're my friends now.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to look at it as the long game. And whenever I start new relationships and build new foundations with people I want to network with, I have a story I tell them about myself. People always remember stories. And I've rehearsed this story so much where it doesn't sound like it's a rehearsed script. And I've practiced a lot. But I always like to have a story prepared when I start networking with people. Where did I come from? Why am I here? Why is this industry important to me? And that's really specific to medical device, because everyone in the industry is all about the mission of treating patient care. They love it. So my story helps them remember me. Okay, here's this Jake Paul kid. Here's where he's from. Here's how he got here. Here's why he wants to be here. And that story is like 1 minute to 2 minutes long. It's usually, I'll share that when people ask me, tell me about yourself. And I'll kind of sprinkle in my story. Sometimes I'll tailor it to what company or what part of the body are treating.
That's great. Thanks, Jake. We appreciate it. Yeah, we had Jake
Yeah.
here. We weren't sure if he'd be able to make it. So thank you for, we know that you're busy and just getting off, so we really appreciate it. I know we have,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks. So I know we've got about 5 minutes left. We're going to kind of breeze through these next parts, but the next platform that you can use for networking is also Forever Utah. Zach, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll go quickly, but this is another awesome tool. You may or may not have heard of it, but we get, a lot of people ask us or they'll email me, hey, do you have a database of alumni I can reach out to? And that's what Forever Utah is. So the website is forever.utah.edu. All alumni are in there as you've been automatically updated, and it's a great place to go and kind of like what this slide shows. You have the instant credibility. It's a little bit more private. It's only open to U of U affiliated people. I'll even share my screen just for a second here to show you kind of what it looks like. It's a really it looks just like LinkedIn. And let's see, share. Here we go. Yeah. And yeah, so you can go in here. There's events. Our event actually is right here when you log in, and you can look people up. So let's say you look somebody up, you send them a message on LinkedIn and they didn't get back to you. This might be another place where you could try to find them. So you could go to this directory and say, hey, I remember talking to that Jason Lowe guy. He seemed really interesting. Let me see if he's on Forever Utah, and you can look him up, and I believe he will populate here when this loads. There he is, Jason. And you can even, so Jason you can see that he's willing to help. He has an updated profile. He's posted a job board before, and you can actually go into his profile and send him a message, connect with him, see what he's offering. And so it's a really fun tool that we are really encouraging people to check out. So that's kind of Forever Utah. Sorry to pick on you, Jason. But
I was going to say, I'm glad, good thing you chose someone who had their profile filled out already. That worked out perfect. All right. Everyone see my screen again? Okay. The last part is informational interviews, and Jake kind of talked about that a bit, taking the relationship offline, getting on the phone and talking with folks. That is, once you can get a real person to chat with you, it is so much easier, especially one-on-one, to convey your interests and learn about them and start building those connections. And then, just like Jake said, make sure that you kind of follow up every quarter or 6 months. And I tend to, like, if someone recommends me a book, I try to always read that book, and then 3 or 6 months down the line, reaching out and saying, hey, I read that book. Thanks for recommending that. Like, how are things? That's kind of a way that I approach it, but there's that. So just a few key takeaways that we learned. We all know that networking is the #1 cause of job attainment. So get out there, start going to events, start talking to folks, get on LinkedIn, get on Forever Utah, and just start making those connections, but more importantly, building those relationships. Like we've all talked about, it's all about the long game, and you're not gonna, most of the time, you won't get something tangible out of it immediately, other than a relationship, which we talked about is also incredibly valuable. And I said there was a misconception that it's hard. And so now it's also on the key takeaways. It's not hard. There are multiple different avenues you can take for networking, but it is hard work, and you get out of it what you put into it. So make sure that you're putting into it what you wanna get out. And the last one here, it is less about just meeting a bunch of people and more about building those relationships. You only need, 1 or 2 of those relationships might end up getting you a job in the future. But if you don't meet with folks, then that's 0. You miss oh gosh, I'm terrible at, what is the analogy? You miss 100% of the shots you don't make. There you go. I got it. All right. I know we're a minute over, so there's not too much time for questions. I'd be willing to stay on and chat if anybody has any, but we do want to make sure that we highlight some of the upcoming events. Zach, I don't know if you want to hit on these a little second.
Yeah, so we've got a couple things, lots of things going on at the U and at the business school. Some of you are signed up to go to this Eccles Alumni Forum tomorrow at noon about the real estate environment in Utah. So we'll see you there tomorrow. If not, it's also being live streamed, so you can check that out at eccles.link/building Utah forum. If you'd like to practice these mixer networking skills, our next mixer is coming up in April, on Thursday, April 17th. It'll be down at the Edison House downtown. You can sign up for that at eccles.link/springmixer. We'll send out the slides for all these, so don't worry. You'll get these links. And then our Eccles Alumni Baseball Night. Oh, I might have I sent you the wrong link, Michelle, because I see this is a YouTube link. But we every year we have a family-friendly baseball game. So if you want to bring your kids or your partner to something that's a little bit less formal networking, but you'd still like to meet people and connect to other business folks, you can go ahead and join us on that. So that's Thursday, May 15th. I'll send the link to that, but it's eccles.link/ballgame. And I'm also going to include a link to a feedback survey. So if you just want to go ahead and take a couple minutes to just fill that out for us, give us some feedback, and most importantly, give us some ideas for our next career lab. We are trying to keep these on a quarterly pace. And so our next one's coming up in June. We're finalizing the topic for that, but we'd like to keep these coming. So if you know anybody that you think would be a great presenter, or you want to present one of these, or you're really passionate about a topic or interested in learning more, please just fill that survey out or send me an email, and we'd love to set something up with you. And lastly, I just want to say thank you so much to Michelle for taking the time to share her story and her expertise and insights on networking, and also special thanks to Jake for talking about his story and also taking us through his process. I really think that's a really helpful framework. So thank you, Jake, and thanks to all of you for being part of our network and engaging in our content and events. And I hope to see you, if not in person, then over the web at our next one of these. So thank you all so much. And I'll turn off the recording. But if you guys want to hang out and chat, I'm happy to stay on as well. And yeah, good to see you all.